Hey everybody, so I wanted to come on here and just discuss this film called Everything But a Man that was actually released 2 years ago, back in spring of 2018. So you're probably wondering, why am I going back that far to find films? Well, it actually was not on purpose. Like some of the films that I seem to discover recently or as of lately, I end up seeing a trailer before a YouTube video for some of these movies that are on channels such as Urban Movie Channel, which you can stream on their website, also through Amazon Prime, and also like BET Plus. So when I see these films advertised, I go like, "Oh my gosh, I never seen this. Let me check this out. I wouldn't have known about it if it hadn't advertised on YouTube." And this one just really struck my attention because I actually am a fan of Monica Calhoun, who many of us know, this actress from the film The Players Club. We all know Lisa Ray, but let's not forget her cousin, played by Monica Calhoun. I don't think any of us has forgotten. But I honestly had not really seen anything that she's been doing as of lately. So it was a really surprise to see the trailer, and I thought it was a more recent film. I thought maybe at the least it came out last year, only to discover an interview done by the director, producer, and writer of the film, Nnegest Likke. I saw an interview of hers where she announced this film actually came out back in spring of 2018. Here is how IMDb.com, the popular film and television website, sums up Everything But a Man. Comedic, dramatic, and sexual tensions collide when a man and a woman from two different worlds meet, fall in love, and then discover they have totally opposite beliefs and ideas about life, love, and what it takes to be happy. And you know what? IMDb.com cannot be any more accurate than what they are when summarizing this film. But I want to dig deeper with my own analysis on this film and why I feel like it is very relative to probably some, I'm not going to say all, but just some Black American women's experience, especially more of the successful, quote unquote, successful or financially well off Black women here in America who are single. So Monica Calhoun plays this successful attorney by the name of Vanessa, who is basically pretty wealthy, as you can see. She has no problem spending her money. She has a beautiful home, and not only does she has a beautiful home, but she also has a beautiful guest house. Looks like she's driving a Mercedes. It looks like financially she has it together, career-wise. But emotionally, she is a wreck. And I truly believe that her experiences in the film with males really lead to her recognizing that she is a emotional wreck and that she really has to take some time out to do the introspection work necessary to attract the kind of man that she is looking for. And so in this film, we see the character Vanessa with her, I guess you could say, struggles with the opposite sex and dating. And there's actually three potential romantic interests that she encounters in this film. And I love how the writer, director, producer, Nnegest Likke, tells this story and really shows us why each situation does not work out, and some even end before they begin. So the first love interest or potential romantic interest is her coworker. Well, rather they're just coworkers in the courtroom, but basically Vanessa is a successful defense attorney, and this particular coworker, I guess you could say, is, I suppose, as he announces, a top prosecutor. And he basically proposes to her, not like literally, but runs across her the idea of them coming together as a power couple. Now, I understand that it is not far-fetched to hear individuals come together and make a relationship a business relationship. However, I'm more so used to hearing daughters being courted off to men of means versus hearing a man come to a woman expecting her to have money, and that really piquing his interest. It's actually kind of scary to me to hear a man so interested in a woman's bank account. But when he made this announcement at the table and suggested them coming together as a power couple, that's what I took away from it. However, Vanessa, the character Vanessa, seemed as though she was more so turned off with just the fact that he was even a Caucasian male. That didn't bother me in the least. It was more so his interest in her money. But either way it go, it wasn't what she was looking for. But I did thought that was very interesting. And I kind of wonder if he was a melanated man, would she have been more than likely more interested in his proposal for them to be a power couple uh, versus him being a Caucasian male? And I also want to add that this dynamic that is played out in the film could also discourage some Black American women from even wanting to interracially date, possibly because of the perception of Black American women being successful, quote unquote, or more likely the breadwinners by non-Black men, and the fear of non-Black men only wanting to be with Black American women for their resources. We already experienced that with some Black American men. So the more the media and the, I guess, movies and things like that push out Black women's so-called dating struggles and marriage struggles, and especially when it comes to Black American women with means and resources, the more it seems like we're becoming or could become more vulnerable to non-Black men using this information to play on our emotions or attempt to play on our emotions simply just to use us and our resources and throw us away, if not harm us in the process in order to obtain those resources. So that's what I took away from the situation with her and her coworker, which I didn't mention. His name is Doug. I keep saying coworker. I don't know however you refer to them because he's the prosecutor and she is the defense attorney. But either way it go, that whole thing was a complete turnoff. So next we have the potential love interest that is the personal trainer. This personal trainer is someone that Vanessa pays to come to her home and give her workout sessions. And honey, it ain't just in the living room, it's in the bedroom as well because unfortunately Vanessa has a sexual life with this individual. But to her surprise, the feelings are totally one-sided. So what we see from this situation is that Vanessa wants to do normal everyday things with this male, but he apparently alleges that he's too booked and busy. He has all these sessions going on, but he wants her to spot him advances on further or future workout sessions, and she mentions something about, I told you not to buy this expensive car. And basically what she ends up learning later on is that he has a girlfriend that he takes to the stores and spends his money on him. Now this particular dynamic is very important, I think, for Black American women, specifically any woman who's in Vanessa's shoes that has money, more money than the men she dates even, and she's giving money to that man, or she mixes business with pleasure by taking someone that she has employed to assist her in whatever kind of way it is, because he's an entrepreneur himself as a personal trainer, but at the same time she's still handing him money for a service. And now he's seeing how she's living in his mind, I guess, lavishly. She's successful, clearly she's making, well, chances are she's making more money than he is. And now you can't tell me anything different when he's actually asking her for advances, and only to discover that he's taking the money apparently and spending it on a girlfriend, which is a slap in the face for Vanessa, because not only is he buying his girlfriend things and being seen in public with his girlfriend, but she discovers he's actually not monogamous and not committed to her. And it's actually egg on Vanessa's face in this scenario, as I'm sure this particular kind of situation has happened to many females, regardless of race. And that situation is having sexual relations with a man, but not demanding something in return prior to even doing so. You're giving up your body without the promise of a commitment without the commitment. Forget the promise, but the commitment should already be there. Hence the reason why so many of us push marriage, or not even necessarily push marriage, but believe in marriage. Because even though a man can cheat in marriage, the point of marriage is to secure the woman, to make sure that regardless of what her husband does in the future, she's taken care of. Without that commitment, and you're if you get cheated on in a marriage or left in a marriage, you're being left with the possibility of in the court system coming out with something for the time that you spent either bearing that man's children or just being his wife and doing wifely things for that man. However, when you don't get that commitment and you're giving up your body, and that's a very, very sacred thing of a woman, of anybody, but we as women, we really feel it emotionally, and you're getting nothing in return because you're not his wife. So you're basically taking risk. You're just, you're not getting anything out of it. And when that occurs, it's even more painful to learn that that individual has someone else. But I would say in this situation, it doesn't seem as though any relationship had been established, any commitment had been established. There definitely wasn't an engagement or anything. It just seems as though the character Vanessa just naturally assumed, because they were sleeping together, because her body was so precious to her, that it was going to be the same for him. And clearly he didn't care, because he had a girlfriend and he was spending money on that girlfriend, basically taking the advances he would get from Vanessa and giving it to his girlfriend. In fact, I'm kind of convinced that perhaps his character only was sleeping with her to get money from her in order to go out and perpetrate like he had it all together when it came to landing women who may have made less money than him. And again, that's another dynamic when it comes to single Black American women who are on that higher, higher than average financial income level. Okay, if I'm making any sense, there is a difficulty in dating, I'm sure, when it comes to being a single Black woman, and you're in a certain income tax bracket. Okay. And that's what we see unfold for Vanessa. But again, what Vanessa should have done was she should have been abstaining and focusing on herself and dating, but not just giving herself away like that. And definitely not to a personal trainer, but I don't think she should have at all. And again, situations like this, it happens to women regardless of race. The next potential romantic interest storyline in this film, which is actually what this film evolves around, is the relationship between Vanessa and her landscaper. And if this film did not win any awards, it definitely should have won the award or awards for Monica Calhoun's incredible acting, as well as her co-star's incredible acting, and as well as Nnegest Likke's writing skills, directing as well as producing skills, but definitely for this screenplay, because this relationship dynamic between the character Vanessa and her landscaper is so freaking toxic. And for the sake of not making this video too long, let me just summarize the relationship between Vanessa and her landscaper. The landscaper was recommended to Vanessa by someone who is her permanent landscaper who got injured on a job. So this landscaper that she ends up falling in love with is actually a temporary worker of hers. Again, it is the same dynamic as her and her personal trainer, where she's hiring this man to do a service for her, and she mixes business with pleasure, and immediately she sleeps with her landscaper. And he's all in. She's a beautiful woman, he's turned on by her, she's offering, he's not about to let that plate go pass him by. And to the viewer, it's like, dang, woman, can't you just go out and date, go to a club, or go out to a nice jazz club, or do some online dating at least? But why does she feel the need to keep entertaining men that she is paying for their services from? And to be honest, again, some of us women have genuinely been there, whether it's a situation like this where we're hiring these men and we find ourselves attracted to them and we end up in situations similar to Vanessa, or we work with these men and we find ourselves being attracted to them and we get ourselves in a business mixed with pleasure situation that explodes in our face. And I'm not saying that's what happens 100% of the time, but I'm quite sure it happens. Well, I'm not going to say I'm quite certain, but I believe, but I wouldn't know for certain though, that it probably does blow up in one's face more than it turns out to be successful because it is a conflict of interest. But just like with many women, unfortunately, the character Vanessa appears to be in a very desperate place where she's at this point in her life. She seems to be an older woman. She's successful. She's got all this money, but she doesn't have the man. And I think that's even mentioned in the film. I think there was someone that quoted, like, what good is all of this money if you don't have love? You know, love can be still love without money, but money is nothing without love. And I believe that's debatable, but hey, to each their own. So, anyway, getting back to summarizing this situation, I found it interesting that during this situationship between Vanessa and her landscaper, there were times where, yes, Vanessa definitely came off as the stereotypical black independent woman, where, successful independent woman, to where she was putting down the landscaper for his career choice or his job versus what she did, and the way she would even talk to him. Like, there was a time she had a conversation with him while on the phone with her mother, and her mother even checked her like, hey, you can't be talking to a man like that. She was basically belittling this man, and it was an interesting thing to see. And it was kind of like, okay, if you have an issue with this man, based off of his profession or lack thereof, why are you entertaining him? So he's good enough for you to sleep with, but he's not good enough. But what he does for a living isn't good enough. So it's like, okay, what's going on? I ain't gonna say you can't have it both ways, but if that's how you feel about him, and if he doesn't meet your standards, if you feel this way about him, how about instead of belittling him, you recognize he's just not the one for you, and it's okay to let him go. But I believe the character Vanessa, like many of us Black American women, and specifically these ones that are in a certain income bracket, that are above most of the men of the quote unquote community in which we come from, they find themselves in that dilemma. They're often convinced and even encouraged. Okay, we're talking successful, quote unquote successful, because I believe that term is subjective. But anyway, um, black women or melanated sisters with means, resources, more money in the bank account than most men that they come across. More than likely, from what I've seen on social media, they're more than likely being convinced, hey, you make more than brother. The system out here is keeping the brother down. The man is keeping the brother down. So, y'all as black women, y'all have to settle. You have to raise a man up. You have to, how do you put it? Just accept the fact that you make more and he doesn't make as much. Now, I'm not even going to dive into that topic because to each their own, but going just strictly off the character Vanessa and what it seems as though she wanted from a man, it seemed like she spent her time through this film trying to build up this man that she didn't even know. She immediately slept with him. He was supposed to be just simply a replacement landscaper of hers. So she rushed into being sexually active with him. There was never, really a relationship established. She barely even knew him, which was another one of her complaints in the film, is that she didn't know much about him. She assumed he was from Africa. Because he didn't refute it, she believed he was from Africa, but it come to find out he was from Haiti. So it goes to show just how desperate she was. And I think what made her feel comfortable with giving herself to him, or she convinced herself it was okay to do so, is the fact that he was just what was in close proximity. He was black, he was safe, he was there. She didn't have to do much. She didn't have to go outside of her comfort zone. She didn't have to do the online dating. She didn't have to go out and, do the blind dates and things like that, because here was a man that seemed like he basically fell into her lap. He was sexually attractive, he was physically attractive, but he wasn't what she was looking for. She was fully aware that he was someone who was a landscaper compared to what she was doing. And not to say landscapers can't make any money, but this man specifically wasn't making the kind of money that she respected. And at the end of the day, she didn't respect his profession. And the way she talked to him, it was horrible, that her mother even had to call her out on belittling him as a man. And my thing is, if we find ourselves, or women find themselves in that situation, because again, I know this can go across racial lines, but since we're dealing with a film centered on black characters, this is why I want to emphasize black women in this situation. It's like, don't allow people and social media and things like that to convince you that if you want something and you have a certain standard when it comes to your romantic partner, don't allow anyone to convince you to settle outside of that. Because with Vanessa, I feel like she was just making excuses and just doing whatever just to have someone there, just to have a warm body next to hers at night. And she tried to build this man up to be her dream man. So on one breath, she was belittling him for being a landscaper and trying to push him to do what he didn't want to do. She was trying to push him to, I forgot what it was, the profession she was trying to push on him. She's like, don't you want to do more? And the things that she would try to get him to do, she would say, there's so much more money to be made in that. And he would go, I like what I do. So he was satisfied with what would be considered in her eyes as a mediocre life. She wanted a man of means. She wanted a man making money. So she wasn't satisfied with that, and she took it out on him by belittling him on one breath, but then in another breath she was literally trying to make him be what she wanted. She was trying to do, as they say on the internet, build a Bob. She was trying to be Bob the Builder. That's what they say. I at least I hear on the internet, in reference to women who try to build up men to be what they want them to be, when the man should be that prior to even getting with them. And again, I think this is an issue, or I don't even think it really is an issue when it comes to black women, black American women specifically, who are single and quote unquote successful, or financially comfortable, in this country. So the writer did an excellent job with the storyline, an excellent job to show that dynamic. So it was like you couldn't really root for Vanessa, and you couldn't really blame the landscaper, because after all, she laid herself out to him like a freaking steak on a plate. She laid herself out and gave herself to that man without any commitment, knowing that he was a landscaper and he wasn't what she was looking for, as far as a man with a certain kind of profession and making a certain kind of income. She tried to build him up to be that. She even went as far as to give him her guest house in exchange for his work, quote unquote, which I didn't fall for that mess. And then she bought him expensive clothes and suits to make him look the part, to try to make him. So she was definitely doing Bob the Builder. And even it was a scene where she took him to a restaurant and he kept telling her, like, I'm a man, I don't need you to pay for this. And he wanted to ask how much something cost on the menu. And she was completely embarrassed about it, because she felt like where they were at, the particular kind of atmosphere that they were in, this bougie restaurant full of Caucasian people, to be honest. She felt embarrassed about that, because she said no one asks how much something costs on the menu, because if you ask that, chances are you can't afford it. Meanwhile, he's telling her, like, listen, I'm a man, I can do what I want. But her argument was, well, why are you asking when I'm paying for it? And again, that definitely reveals some issues when it comes to Black American women who may not have, especially on Vanessa's level, who may not necessarily have been taught, either from family or a relationship coach, how men are, how men think, and how they can use their femininity in a situation. But something like that, trying to pay everything for a man, trying to basically buy a man, is not your role as a woman. And it's a complete turnoff to a man. And if a man is looking for money from you, chances are that's just not, I'm gonna say 100% of the time, that's a setup. That's set up for doom, and that is someone who's looking for a sugar mama, not a wife. And unfortunately, many of us women, like Vanessa, either are so desperate to have a man that we will do things like that. We'll buy them clothes, we'll will build them up, will how can I put it, will invest in them. And then unfortunately when they get to the point where they're looking better and doing better, they go for women who have less than them, because that's what makes them feel like a man, having a woman that needs them instead of feeling like a child to a woman that is taking care of them. So all of that played out in this film. But to add insult to injury, y'all, what really made this film off the hook was when Vanessa discovered that her landscaper was actually married. Mind you, this is way after she done moved him into her guest house, after they done been sexually active numerous times, and she's beginning to become very serious about him. And she then bought the man clothes and everything, and met his friends. She discovers that he is actually married. Now, he tells he they this whole thing explodes between them, and if you haven't seen the film, you got to watch the film to understand all that, because the video is long enough as it is. So I'm just going to skip to the part where she ends up meeting the woman, because Vanessa is so head over heels for this man and really has already invested herself completely into him. So it wouldn't even make sense for him to let him go now, which you would think after discovering he's married she would have just let him go. But no. Why would it be more so difficult for her to just walk away after discovering this very, very important information? Well, she's already invested too much in him. You see where I'm going with this? This is a big issue. And like I said, the writer of this film did a great job. She really understands psychology. She really understands black female psychology and black American ways. And not to mention him as a Haitian man, she understood a lot, and she brought this film together very well. And I'm not sure if I'm even explaining it that well, which is why I recommend just watching the film if you haven't already. And I really hope you have if you made it to this point in the video. But anyway, this so because Vanessa has invested so much in this man financially, physically, emotionally, mentally, she's very reluctant to let him go, despite learning the fact that he has a whole wife and two children back in Haiti. And as he explains it, he says exactly out his mouth that and it is understood by his people where he's from that a married man can love another. And she said, well, this is America. It's completely different here. And so, with that dynamic, whether or not we believe he's wrong or right, it doesn't even matter. What really matters is that we know that this isn't what this character wants. However, we see that because she has invested so much in him, she's reluctant to leave. And actually, she feels more inclined to stay. Still not even a wife herself. Still have nothing of his. And now you're talking about someone that has a whole nother family, um, overseas or wherever, he has a whole nother life, but she's willing to settle because that's just the place that she's in her life right now. She wants to just settle. So this is really genius. This is really genius when it comes to writing. But anyway, he has the audacity, in my opinion, but again, I guess based off of where he's from and his culture and things like that, it's normal to him. But he has the audacity to take her back to Haiti to meet his wife and his two children, who he says he hasn't seen in 5 years because of the displacement of the hurricane that hit Haiti. And I like how they put that in there as well. He wasn't able to provide for his family, so he went to America, I guess, to be able to make money and send it back to his wife and his children. So he hadn't seen them in 5 years, as he put it, which is like, what? But I get it. That's their culture. That's something that he felt like he had to do. But Vanessa, she marries him, I guess, on paper in order to help him get a green card. So again, she's investing so much and getting nothing in return. And it's like, why? Why? But I think when that is discussed in the film about how she just and he tells her like, no, you've already done so much for me, and she makes that suggestion, that offer to marry him so that he could get the green card that he need, despite the fact that he's already married in Haiti. I think it's an example of how black women are constantly, some of us are constantly doing the most for black men and getting nothing in return. And not even having to be asked to do it. It's that sense of undying race loyalty in us, regardless of how we're disrespected, regardless of how we're disappointed, regardless of how unprotected we are, regardless of the fact that she apparently, I assume in this film, has never even been married. Now, her first marriage and only marriage is going to be to a man who's already married in Haiti and has a whole family, but she's sacrificing um her own, I guess, relationship status, as you can put it, for this man who gives her nothing in return. She has given him everything, not that he asked for it, but why would he turn it down when she's so willingly, giving it up? So with that being said, he takes her back to Haiti to meet his wife and children. And she has an interesting conversation with the wife, who already knows, based off of the looks that her husband and Vanessa shares, that the woman is very much, or Vanessa is very much in love with the woman's husband. And she confronts, in a very classy way, mind you, she confronts Vanessa about being in love with her husband. And Vanessa says to the woman, well, how do you feel about me? Like, are you willing to accept me being in love with your husband because I can't walk away? And the woman says to her something about, I can't control what another person does, but how do you? It's not about how I feel. I am already his wife and he has children by me. He'll never leave me. Now ask yourself, are you willing to accept that? And when I tell you, I'm not even in the film, and that hit me hard. And it hit the character Vanessa hard to the point where she finally ends up saying goodbye to this landscaper because she realized the woman was right. She could see the love there that he had for his wife, not to mention he had children by this woman. She didn't want to break up this home. That, even though he said that's his culture, it wasn't what Vanessa had stood on. And it seemed like through this entire film, whatever esteem that Vanessa had from her career, it was definitely overshadowed by the low self-esteem she had in her romantic life. But in that moment when she decided to walk away from him and to finally release him, that was the moment in the film where it seemed like she finally reclaimed her self-esteem and recognized that, you know what, this isn't mine after all. And it's got to be something more for me out here. And it's okay to let this go and not settle anymore. And I'm sure that wasn't easy because, like I said, she had invested so much in him. And I really enjoy films like this because it's really a way to stop other women out here from making those same mistakes, or maybe even catching some of the women who are making these mistakes right now while they're making it before it's too late, so that they can get themselves out of out of these situations. But yeah, it was a really, really great film. Another honorable mention dynamic of the film that I haven't spoken of is the fact that Vanessa, as a defense attorney, had a legal aide. Her legal aide's name was Sharita. Now, what I believe this character Sharita in this film portrayed was a younger version of Vanessa herself. This character Sharita was a soon to be attorney. She's in law school and she's working as her legal aide. So it's kind of like Vanessa is her mentor. And throughout this film, Sharita is having some issues with her own fiance. And her fiance is basically telling her, like, listen, you're going to have to cut down on the hours you're working because we're getting ready to get married and I want a family. And so with that, Sharita really wants, and you can see Sharita's very passionate about her career. And I think she even admires Vanessa so much that she wants to be like Vanessa. She wants to work as hard as Vanessa does. But Vanessa puts in long hours, which she ends up coming to Vanessa about this situation with her and her fiance. And Vanessa was very cold throughout the film when it came to Sharita asking Vanessa for her advice in regards to what she should do about her fiance wanting her to cut back on her hours, her work hours for their relationship. Vanessa, coming from a place of brokenness, only response was, you're going to be an attorney and you're going to have to put in those hours and don't choose love over career. But the blessing in it all is that in the end, when Vanessa finally understood that that dynamic of how she had been thinking her entire, I suppose, professional career, was wrong, she called Sharita immediately as she was driving away from her landscaper love interest situation, and she told Sharita, "Choose your husband, choose your fiance, choose love over your career." And I truly believe in that moment the reason why Vanessa made that call is because she recognized and realized that for the longest time she chose her career and investing herself so much in her career that she never even gave her romantic life a chance. So much so that now she's at a point as an older woman, she's been so desperate to just cling on to whatever man was around her and make it work. And it exploded. So this film, like I said, was so well done. So well done. And I just think it's a really great film for many, okay, many single black American women to see. And it's definitely an eye opener. So that's it. Like I said, I really hope that you all check out the film if you haven't already. And let me know what you think about it in the comment section. I'll talk to y'all soon. Peace.